Hello, I'm David Hunt. My guest today, he's a visual artist, curator, stylist, a concept genius. He'll winch at that, but he is. A collector of stuff. He's a big collector of stuff. I think visual theatre, telling stories with amazing detail. And he takes you on this journey through a moment in history. It's absolutely fascinating what he does there. His background is in styling, photography, like painting, of course, and you must follow him on social media, especially Instagram, because he's a very funny man. Andrew Delaney, welcome.
Thank you, David.
Now, where do we start with you? Because your mind, and while we've been waiting for everyone to set up, we've been chatting about you as an artist. Yeah, your mind is thinking of so much all the time. It's just wonderful. Let's go back though. You, a kid growing up down Geelong Way, is that right?
Further down near Warrnambool. So,
okay.
Yeah, so much western, Victoria.
Right, okay.
On a farm.
On a farm?
On a farm.
Right.
So, yeah.
So where did this creative side of it come from? Was your dad thinking, like you're going to take over running the farm or something? Or, you had other aspirations?
I think my sisters would have taken over the farm quite easily. I think it just came from having to entertain myself and to make things and make toys and build cubbies in haystacks and all that sort of stuff, and using sticks and the basics just to sell things and play with things. So I've always had an imagination. So I think it comes out of that.
And was your father okay with that? How you get that image of farmers and you've got to be a man, a boy.
Oh, I think he realised fairly early on that that's the way I was going. So he came to terms with that, I think.
Right. Okay. And so therefore, they didn't hold you back. Your family encouraged you.
No. Mum was really supportive and
brilliant.
Bought me one of those studio buildings, and you just plop it up on the property, and that was my little studio. So
wow,
very supportive. Yeah.
Wow.
And also put me through a TAFE course for visual merchandising and all that sort of stuff.
Leaving school, where did you go? How far away from the town and school were you?
Melbourne.
So you then moved to Melbourne, right?
Moved to Melbourne and did a 2-year full-time course there, and that had photography and life drawing and graphics and economics and you name it. It had its store design, all sorts of stuff. So it was a really great way for me to sort of look at all these different things and kind of go, what do you want to do? And it was going to be photography initially. So, but I ended up sort of behind the camera doing stuff. Yeah,
because you worked at Myer doing the visual masterpieces at those front windows at Myer.
Oh, I wasn't good enough for front windows.
Hey, you weren't good enough for the front windows.
There's a specialised team for front windows, but certainly in store and Lonsdale Street windows I got to do. And that was, creating that perfect little picture of something you want people to obviously buy and suckering them into that, and the psychology behind that, which I still use today to lure people in, and it's getting them to stop and to sort of question what they're looking at and wanting a part of it.
Now, the window dresser, as they were called, famously were usually gay men.
Apparently so.
How did you find that world?
I wasn't out at that point when I joined, and it took me a little while to get comfortable enough to do that there. There were some really flamboyant characters, obviously, there. An old school sort of, age groups all the way through. All sorts of different people, trans people were working there, which was wonderful. It took me a while, being a country boy, just to feel comfortable enough to.
So when did you realise, Andrew, back on the farm, did you realise then that that you might be gay, or?
I realised when my Steve Austin doll and my G.I. Joe doll got rather intimate one time.
Right. That's hysterical.
I've always known. So.
Right. Okay. But didn't do anything about it until you moved to the big smoke, per se. Well, what was it like for a country boy moving to the city and being in that world that you were in, with the very, as you said, very flamboyant world? It would have been very much.
It was pretty daunting.
Yeah.
And I was probably slightly homophobic myself, coming from the country, because you hear all this stuff and the only thing you're watching on TV was Are You Being Served and Benny Hill and you know, and that stuff, even though that's all we had, was a real cringe factor for me. And so it actually took me a while to get comfortable enough to sort of realise that they weren't all that. There's a lot more to them, and then, you know, they're people, and what they do is you know, their own thing. But I was probably slightly homophobic.
Right, okay.
Yeah, from that conditioning that you get.
Yeah.
From, you know, church, TV, you know, schooling, you name it.
So when did you come out to your parents, or didn't you?
I think I snuck up to Mardi Gras and disappeared for 3 days, and they kind of twigged something was going on. And I was coming down and got the phone call and just tears, and it was a mess. But Mum was absolutely fine with it. She said, like, I'll tell the rest of the family, and that's it. And
that was it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And did your dad speak about it?
No, not really. A few years ago, he mentioned something which I was quite surprised at, but that was to do with the pedophile priest that was around at the time that we had through Western Victoria, and he sort of said, nothing happened there, did it? And I kind of went, no, it didn't. And I was quite surprised that he verbalised that.
Yeah.
Because he'd obviously been thinking about it, and may have even said, well, that's what happened, you know. But I certainly put his mind at rest.
Right. That's good, and it's fantastic that it didn't happen to you.
And I must say, he had been to all my exhibitions.
Right.
And the first one that you saw was kind of like shocked, because he knew I was sewing and doing different sorts of things, but he didn't know what context. And he sort of walked into the gallery and sort of said, which one's yours? And I said, Dad, it's all mine. And he kind of was kind of taken aback a bit, and he sort of just took it in his stride and sort of, I think he was fairly pleased.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because you know how much I love what you do on that front, and you were telling me before we started filming that you might be moving away from it as time goes on. But what do you call them? I call them you know, an installation, but you don't, do you?
It's still an exhibition, but I tend to try and take some of the snootiness out of it, purely to get people to interact. And you only have to see what the NGV and that are doing now, as far as trying to get people in and on Friday nights and enjoy themselves and entertain people, and to give them an experience rather than just a flat wall viewing. And that's kind of what and even Rowan did it sort of with, you know, his wonderful exhibition at Flinders Street Station. People want an experience with their art.
And do you think when you see something like Rowan that's exactly what you're doing? You know, like with you know, recreating a sewing room because of.
I've got to say, the set dressing in that was amazing. So that's something that I would absolutely adore.
Yeah. Well, you should talk to him.
I should talk to him.
You should get involved.
But the strength of it for me was that, because it was all personal items, and you could.
And cobwebs or dust in, you know, like just amazingly done. People are probably still confused with what it is, but you recreate a moment in history in a lot of cases. And one of the exhibitions was American Civil War. Tell people what that was.
Well, I recreate exhibitions sort of thing. So it's an exhibition, but I just happen to make everything. So if there's paintings, I do the paintings. If there's a costume, I do the costume. You know, if there's a model of something, I do the model of something. So it's me recreating an exhibition about something, but underneath it all, it's me subverting history and what you think you know. And but basically, it's to get someone talking about an object they're looking at.
Yeah.
So I've done an exhibition on anatomy, and it was all bodies and babies and all that sort of thing. And so realistic as well. You did kind of.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, like, it's not the exact, you know, like the intestines and whatever, but you did a bloody good job. And tell our viewers, you know, like that, how it was a rug that you had, and you.
A lot of it was blankets. So just really beautiful woolen blankets. Mostly locally sourced, so from down near Warrnambool, where the woolen mills were, but beautiful colours, and I didn't have to dye anything. So all these colours, which looked like, you know, flesh and grey and all the rest of it, were just taken. You know, take a blanket and turn it into a body, and getting someone to take that leap of faith with you is part of the joy for me. is to get them to second guess what it is and what's being said and why are they freaking out. And,
but you don't have to second guess. It's obvious what it is. You know, like it's a body, the upper half of a body, but it's opened up, and you're seeing, you know, like all the bits and pieces, and stunningly, you know, like, and then babies. You know, like your mind must be racing at 100 miles an hour with you creating all of this.
I can switch it off.
You can switch it off.
Yeah, just watch TV.
Well, I don't watch TV. Benny Hill show. No, that's a joke. But then there was another exhibition you did where it was a Darwin. You know, it was all the bits and pieces that he brought back. And I've seen photos of it. Again, unfortunately, I didn't see the exhibition. But there are all little, you know, like how they used to put everything in a little compartments. And you had shells and a bird, part of a bird's skeleton. And I went, oh, yeah, did you find them on a beach or whatever? And you said, no, I made them.
That's true. So it was about him being a meticulous, you know, documenter of shells and obviously the finches and all the different beaks and all that sort of stuff. So it was about him, so it had some of his personal objects in there in one of his trunks and some of his maps. So it was about him and the man, and about how he questioned his faith and what that was going to do to, you know, to the world, finding out that it wasn't all done in 7 days and it was all evolution and all that sort of stuff, and him losing his daughter and all that sort of stuff. So references to all that was through the exhibition. So it's about him, the man, and about his struggle with faith.
Right, and you picked certain places for it, the Nicholas Building, and you actually was in a gentleman's store with one of them through Midsummer. What exhibition was that?
That was the body dysmorphia one.
Right, okay.
So it was kind of anatomy again, but it was a little bit more psychological.
Right.
So there was sort of straitjackets and some surreal pieces that were a little bit, you know, warped and distorted, to make you feel uneasy and to make you question things, and you know, a bodysuit that was all muscular and stuff, but you actually would take it on and put it off. So,
but then all of a sudden, through COVID lockdown, you started doing portraits of yourself.
I was that bored.
You were that bored, and there's no one else to play with.
There's no one else around. Yeah, that was a weird time, I think, for everybody, and I kind of chose to look at it that I'm in lockdown. I've got possibly a couple of months up my sleeve to focus on something, and let's do art, let's do painting. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to do some self-portraits and hope they'll get one that I like. And so I sat there the first month of lockdown and just did a selfie for the first month every 2 days. And, you know, one might have a gas mask on, one might have something else happening.
And there was one as you as a child?
One of me as a child. And then the second month I actually did turn those into paintings and did one every second day, and just sort of put myself on neutral and just churn them out.
Yeah. Brilliant. You know, they're
interesting.
Well, no, they're brilliant. But you haven't done anything with it, have you? Apart from putting it on social media.
I actually put my foot through one of them the other day.
Andrew, that's because you've got to exhibit stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm saving up.
You're saving it up.
Something big.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
That what you've told me that you were going to do in a couple of years' time, or is it a different one?
No, it's separate.
That's separate.
I think, there's a couple of smaller projects, and then there's that bigger project.
Do you want to tell people, or do you want to keep that a bit of a secret?
It's kind of a non-event at the moment, so I'll just keep that null and void. But it's a combination of history and anatomy and science and life and death and the Creator, all under one name. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Will I tell them? No, I won't. No, I won't.
Yeah. It's on the back burner.
It's on the back burner. But you must have been really surprised on how good and the reaction you had to your portraits.
It's an interesting thing, the self-portrait.
Because people think, oh, look, he's got an ego. He's painting
and it certainly wasn't an ego trip. It was kind of a little bit more of a head thing.
Well, that's because you played with it so well, and you're like, and that's your humour, which I love. And as you said, there was one with a gas mask on.
So it was literally 15 different aspects of my personality, and I only thought I had 3. So that was kind of good. But yeah, so to have, and they're not up around the house at all. They're sort of all just shoved in a corner. But it was certainly me sort of coming to terms with what was happening and literally putting something into a physical thing. So I could sit back and kind of go, okay, you're not as messed up as you thought you were.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's debatable. But
it's so debatable. So it was a really interesting psychological thing for me to do.
Yep. But then you've taken it to another degree where you offer to paint for a fee, of course, of other people. And that's working, isn't it?
It is working. And to get them to want a portrait to start with is kind of like, well, you know, it's not...
And do you think, you're obviously got a bit of an ego going here. Do you think that?
No, not at all. It's to get them to bypass the ego and kind of go, okay, it's a representation of you, and it's, you know, fairly thoughtful and pared back. And in years to come, you'll sort of think, wow. But at the moment, you're kind of thinking, what? So it's to get them to take that leap of faith to do it. And it's really interesting to not know the person and to do it, but then to have their family or some of their friends kind of go, you've caught him, he's, you know, it's spot on. Or
fantastic. And how do you do it? Do you like we're sitting here now, or do it Zoom?
It's on off a photograph, and half the time I need to take the photograph because I'll go through their socials and it's all, you know, smiley, happy, social, cheery, and it's kind of like, well, that's not what I'm after. So come round, we'll talk about it, and I'll take 3 or 4 photographs, and it doesn't take that much.
Yeah.
And we'll pick a photograph, and then they go away, and they come back, you know, a couple of weeks' time, and it's done. So it's working off a photograph, which is so much easier.
Right, yeah.
It's not sitting there for hours.
Yeah. So you were living in St Kilda for 20 odd years, or I believe, but now you've moved back to Geelong. You've been back there a couple of years in a warehouse with an ex-partner. Does he still live on another floor?
He lives above.
Above you. How does that work?
It works very well.
Good. So you're just friends now, are you?
Good, and probably better friends than we were when we moved down there.
Right.
The warehouse was such an incredible space. It was my main reason for moving down there, just for being so economical and big, and you never could get anything like that down here in Melbourne.
No, especially for how much cheaper the rent would be. And has it, you were mentioning that it's actually pushed you back into the closet a little bit.
We don't necessarily get the press down there as far as the newspapers and all that sort of thing. There's, you know, apart from the piano bar, that's kind of it. There's I think there might be another cafe down there actually.
Right.
So it's a fairly tight-knit community. They do a
film festival.
They do an amazing film festival.
Yeah.
And they also do their summer. What do you call it? Festival. They do their own version of Midsummer.
Okay.
With several events and stuff over the weekend. But apart from that, it's really quiet.
Yeah.
And I used to be a Laird boy. I used to go to the Laird every Friday night and stuff. So initially, that was quite a culture shock for me to go down there and do that. So I've pulled right back as far as.
And you're happy?
I'm content.
You're content?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the warehouse, because it's almost like a museum. And you often will post on Instagram. What's your Instagram address?
Anno Domini Home.
Which was your store in the Nicholas building as well. Or you could just do Andrew Delaney and you'll find it that way as well. Because you've got to follow him. It's just, it's just, but beautiful. You'll have, it's almost like an opium smoke coming, but it's obviously not. And you've got classical music playing, and it's beautiful to discover what you've put on social media on a daily basis.
It's great to live in. I mean, I'm a big believer in, you create your own surroundings and your own ambience and that sort of thing. You shouldn't have to wait for 2 weeks of the year to go on holidays and live it up. You can do it if you're clever and economical in your own home.
Yep.
And why shouldn't you do it in your home? You want an opium den in your home, you go and do it.
Yeah,
So there was no one stopping me from doing what I wanted to do, and so I just went and did it.
And and there's a table and there's 900 vases on it, or glass.
I do collect stuff.
I said that, a good collector of stuff.
I'm trying to hone that down, and I'm trying to clear out a little bit of the stuff. No room for. And so that makes the stuff that you do have look tighter and more interesting when there's not stuff hanging, leaning against it. And
what about dusting? Is that you don't dust?
He dusts. Open up the window.
Open up the window and let the wind blow in, that sea breeze.
I have a thing where there's a lot of science glass, a lot of specimen domes and stuff like that. And if you're photographing them, it's actually better to photograph them with a layer of dust on, because it cuts the light source off the top, and it also makes the glass register on film.
And that's a good story. You should stick with that.
That's what I say.
Now, something pretty exciting is happening. Late last year, you actually did a photo shoot in your. It's almost like a gallery in a way, isn't it? But your home, your warehouse, and it's going to be part of a book.
It is going to be part of a book. A wonderful man called Paul Gambino is doing a book out of the States on Gothic interiors, and he's done books on skulls, and he's done books on cabinets of curiosities. He's also done books on people that collect serial killer souvenirs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like letters and postcards and stuff. And he actually said that was one of the strangest.
I could imagine.
Interviewing people that collected, and the fans of are obviously a different mindset. So it goes into one of his books, which is amazing.
And so it's all about Gothic living, is it?
Yeah, which I didn't realise I was, but apparently I am.
You are.
A goth. So there you go. So it was all photographed, and so I've got to sort of edit the warehouse right down and make it look as roomy as possible.
And that gave you the idea it should get rid of a bit of stuff.
And then I thought, I don't want to put stuff back. So.
Yeah. And what does that mean to you, Andrew, to have this book that's going to be around the world? That's pretty cool thing to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of made me realise that the strength of a lot of the stuff that I do is actually in the photographs rather than necessarily the object. So I can make an object and put it in a gallery and people will go, oh, that's nice. But if I photograph it in my location the way I want to do it and present the way I want to do it, it actually adds several layers to it, and it also adds more credibility to my brand, if you like, of what I do. So, and obviously photographic styling and display and all that come into it, whereas I don't necessarily get to do that if it's on a white plinth.
Yep.
So I'm playing on that more, and I'm going to list the warehouse to be a photo location,
right?
And things like that, and hire out stuff for photographers to use for,
as props,
for props and things, because it's all there, and I can't just have it sitting there. I dread the day that I move. So,
are you worried that the building might be sold and it will be pulled down and they'll build apartments?
We're right for a little while.
Why? How do you know
it's classified.
It's classified, is it?
And there's a lot of building going on around it. There's a lot of major works going on around it in the middle of town, which is great. So I think we're right. And if we do get to move on, I get to move somewhere else. I'm not necessarily worried about change the way I used to be. I used to be quite a stickler for trying to keep my act together and stuff.
And would you move back into the city, or would you stay down there?
I wouldn't mind moving back into the city. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you're moving away from these exhibitions a little bit, and you're working towards a lot more of your painting. Why?
I just think lockdown was a bit of an epiphany for me. I kind of realised I have other things that I can do, and I can show paintings in Italy without actually, having to leave, the bedroom kind of thing. So I'm playing more on technology and the reach of that, rather than physically having to pop something in front of someone's face in a gallery. And I can't. And once it comes down to me being able to control how that item or that thing is perceived, and so if I can do an exhibition online or whatever, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Preferably.
And what about, you know, like, do you want to be a household name, not a household name, but a well-known person, or doesn't that bother you?
I'd like to live off it comfortably, but the name is, and I've probably started to push my name more than I used to do. I used to be very much behind the scenes.
Because you're fairly shy, aren't you?
I'm getting over it, David, thank you. But as a rule, yes. So, and I realise part of my brand is actually me, just as much, especially if I'm painting and stuff like that. It's not anonymous anymore.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to do a little bit of that.
I love, there was a photo on Instagram a week or so ago, and it was a brick wall, and there was this one brick down the bottom, and it's you. You painted.
It's not me, but yeah.
Isn't it you?
No, but it doesn't have to be. It can represent me.
Right.
That's a wall opposite literally my front door that's about to come down, like literally fall down. And whereas you can pull bricks and stuff out, and I thought, oh, everyone else is graffitiing all over stuff. Why don't I paint a brick? So I painted a brick and shoved it back in.
And it's there still?
For the moment,
For the moment, until the wall falls down. But, you know, like, again, that's a bit of fun. You know,
it's a bit of fun. It doesn't, you know, art or, you know, it doesn't have to be some big serious thing. It can be quirky.
And then a little bit later, it was only a couple of days ago, there was a self-portrait of you with like a turban on, and you actually painted that. And the likeness is brilliant.
Oh, that one's me.
So congratulations on it. Like, your likeness is incredible. And it's sort of on the circular...
it's in the old traditional Victorian oval. And it's kind of a character piece. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's going to sit obviously within all that furniture and stuff. So I thought, you know, why not? And a lot of my stuff is why not? You know, there's no rules to hold you back, so just do it.
Yeah. And what about your mind? You know, like, because I'm just blown away with how creative you are, and all the stuff that you've achieved over the years, and you're always so shy on it. You know, like, you've got so many great ideas, and this exhibition that you've got on the back burner is going to be a couple of years away. You know, like, how exciting that you've got so much to think about. Do you actually think sometimes, gosh, I've got too much that I'm going to do and achieve, and I'm not going to be able to achieve it all? Or you don't stress about stuff? I
kind of like put it in compartments and stuff, so I can kind of switch from one to the other. And it might take a while for things to come together for a major thing, and I'm quite happy to do that. I just have to, you know, it doesn't all have to happen at once.
Yeah.
So I'm patient to a degree.
Right, okay. Well, keep on doing what you're doing. I just love it. Andrew Delaney, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
I'm David Hunt. You've been watching Bent TV, and we'll see you again real soon.